raise the bar on gender. Who will give us a welcome address?
Thank you very much. I have known Mr. Timothy Soul. We come off from Olwa. That's in. Hello. All right. My colleagues, ministers of government, deputy minister, our friends from the University of the All right. Our friends from the University of the Fraser Valley, my dear sister, Dr. Bintu Mansare, it's been forever. It's great to see you. We missed you. Our friends, University of Sierra Leone folks, students, civil society activists, members of the Fourth Estate in Sierra Leone, distinguished Sierra Leoneans. On behalf of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Brigadier Retired Dr. Julius Madabio, who himself is a globally recognized, unapologetic champion of women's rights and gender equality. On behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, I wish to heartily welcome you to this auspicious occasion where we are talking about how we advance gender equality and inclusive education in Salone. Let me start by thanking our friends from the University of the Fraser Valley for your interest in Sierra Leone, for your partnership and your friendship. These are the kinds of partnerships we look forward to. We are aligned in values and in vision, and we are committed to working with you to seeing this initiative to its logical conclusion. I should also thank my colleagues who, with very little notice, are here today. The Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Ruri, the Minister for Gender, Dr. Mahoy, it's not so doctor then today, and my auntie, the Deputy Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Madam Gogra. Friends, Udea, because President Bio champions gender equality and inclusive education. This issue is close to my heart because before I came onto this position, many of you knew this. One of the issues that we were championing was getting pregnant girls back into school in Salone. I was an activist who was starting Purposeful. And following the Ebola outbreak, it was reported that thousands of girls were pregnant. And the government at the time, dare I say, in a decision that will never make sense to me, decided that the solution to the rampant sexual abuse against our girls that have resulted in them being shut out of schools was that we will enact a policy that will take away their fundamental rights to education and shut the door on education of our girls. It was a policy that was abhorrent and inconsistent with the values that we have as a country and the commitment that we were making at the time to get every child into school. As an activist then, we partnered with other people, international partners, and we started a global petition. We took the government to court. Internationally, we took them to the ECOWAS courts. We took them to courts here in Sierra Leone. We pushed back, we engaged, we pushed, and we pushed. Many of you here were part of that campaign to allow pregnant girls to go back to school. Not because pregnant girls in their own were a special species, but because we understood that that ban was a representation of all of the ways that we fail girls and then blame them as well for our collective failures. Doc was also a very vocal champion of that campaign. I remember so many times in meetings, online. But the good news is, the reason I want to talk about that is because we're here because of something good. And that's how I want to frame this conversation. Change, history is not static. We keep moving. From a country, and I dare I say, even this government, when they came, the position of this government was that pregnant girls will not go to school. And this is one of the reasons why I love, respect, and admire President Bio. Because I think the greatest mark of intelligence is that you can change your mind when confronted with the facts. And President Julius Maada Bio, when we lobbied him, he listened, he saw the facts. He did not just change his mind. He became a champion for radical inclusion. He enacted a policy that said, don't just think about pregnant girls, but let's think about how we remove any and all barriers to girls, to children in rural areas, to people living with disability, and let's open doors of education for everybody. So we are not yet at the destination. The journey continues. But what that story tells you, and this is not ancient history. It's only about 6 years ago that we got rid of that ban. Just 6 years ago. It tells you that the work you all do matters. That the research that will come out of these conversations, these projects, the conversations that we'll have here, they will lead to change. And we should keep pushing and advancing that change. Because there are counter forces who want to take us back. There are people who come dressed nicely, speak good, but want to challenge gender equality, inclusive education. They want to make problematic the idea that we are committed to comprehensive sex education. And we're here because in Salone, President Bio's government, all of us, my fabulous colleagues who you will hear from very soon, we are committed to work with all of you to continue on that journey of progress. So thank you for coming, and let's have a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Let's put hands together for our minister again. We call him the minister we know the lie. The minister we know the waste time. And the minister we the deliver. Put hands together for him again. Amazing. You know, he said some very important things that focusing really on how this government continue to stand in challenging for norms, negative norms that affect women, girls across Sierra Leone. And one of them we've seen now that girls, even though you were pregnant, you could still come back to school. You can run back to school. I've seen girls taking public exams in heavy pregnancy. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for that welcome address. We want to also move to an open statement that we'll have from one of our delivering minister as well. We were in New York together, and I heard her speak. I saw passion in her voice. And one of the things she said, we remain steadfast in our commitment to fully implement areas of concern outlined in the Beijing Declaration and the Platform for Action. She stated it in an unshaken voice. We have seen her drive passion from advocacy and on to becoming a minister today. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, we're going to have an open statement from the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs, Dr. Aissata Mahoy.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleague ministers, distinguished guests from the University of Fraser Valley in Canada, development partners, students and children here present, civil society organizations, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is with deep appreciation and a strong sense of purpose that I join you here today at this national event organized by the Ministry of Information and Civic Education. I commend the ministry for its leadership in convening this important dialogue on championing gender equality and inclusive education, a theme that ties on the heart of our national development aspirations and collective commitment to human dignity, equality, and progress. Education is not a fundamental human right. It is the most powerful tool we have to transform lives, dismantle inequality, and build inclusive societies. Yet, for far too many years, our children in Sierra Leone and around the world are also faced with those challenges. Access to quality education remain unequal and unjust. Girls, children, and persons with disability, adolescents, mothers, and those from the rural areas and marginalized communities continue to face systemic barriers that limit their potential and silence their dreams. You know, sometimes when I'm asked to give a statement like this, I take my life back in the years when I was very little in the village. Children don't wear clothes, they are barefooted, and some of us have the opportunity in the urban areas, but we do not think back to reflect of those children that suffer, that feel the brunt of society, that are being marginalized. It is not of their own fault. It is of the systemic problems we have in this country. So sometimes I feel that there is a heavy burden on me particularly as the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs that I bear, that if I wake up one morning and see that there will be no more suffering for children like that, I'll be one of the most happiest persons in the world. But it's also not to understand that globally, we are guided by the 2030 agenda, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, particularly Goal 4, which calls for inclusive and equitable quality and lifelong learning for all, and Goal 5, which seeks to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. These goals are reinforced by the UNESCO strategy for gender equality and in Through Education 2019 and 2025, which emphasizes the need for gender transformative education systems that empower learners, challenge stereotypes, and promote inclusive learning environment. Sierra Leone has boldly aligned itself with this global commitment under the leadership of His Excellency, the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio. We have enacted Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, which is the GEWE, which is mandating us at least a 30% representation of women in public life and promote equal access to education, employment, and leadership. We have also adopted the national policy on radical inclusion. My colleague talked about it. That's why sometimes when he speaks, I begin to wonder, what am I going to say? Because he knows it all. He's the mouthpiece for government. And you'll wonder, when this man has spoken, what is Aissata Maoui going to say? These frameworks are complemented by the first to report about. Not only negative things, but something that will help create that change that people can picture in their eyes to say, oh yes, this is a good journalist or a media practitioner or a blogger. For those of us in the educational system, there is a lot that we need to change. We need to ensure that when we are given the job, we do what it takes to create the change that people want to see. Students, you have the responsibility to oblige, to study, to make sure whatever degree or certificate that you have, you earn that. Because today, we have seen the gaps in the educational system. But as a government, we have been so committed in developing laws. And implementing those laws is for me and you to be able to accept first that these laws, understand the laws, and agree to implement them, to enforce them. Because sometimes we do things and say, oh, the government. We blame the government for everything. When children spy during examination, then say the government. When parents collude with their students to pay an examiner for their children to pass exams, you blame government. When the children themselves refuse to study, they prefer to have sexual favors in return, to give sexual favors in return for their grades, we blame government. What is our own responsibility? I'm saying this, I'm also speaking because I'm a lecturer at the university and I know exactly the problems that we face at the university level. Today, it's all of our problems. It's our commitment, our responsibility to make sure laws work, to make sure we abide by those laws. Ladies and gentlemen, true inclusion, however, demands a shift in our collective mindset. It is not merely about placing children in classrooms. It is about removing the invisible barriers, social, psychological, economic, that prevent them from learning, participating, and feeling the problems that we are going through. We must continue to challenge the deep-rooted cultural beliefs that diminishes the value of girls' education and limits aspirations of boys in embracing values of equality and care. We must dismantle the fear, silence, and shame that surrounds issues like menstruation, disability, and abuse in school settings. Importantly, we recognize that inclusion cannot be achieved without dialogue and collaboration. This is why you see, when you see like the Minister of Gender in an event, you will see the Minister of Education. You also see the Minister of Health many times. You will see the Minister of Information. So it's a multifaceted approach. This is why we work as one government. We transmit issues as one government. Importantly, this is also true that in today's meeting, as we are convening this critical meeting, it brings together the voices and experience of educational parents, civil society, young people, and policymakers Through shared understanding and joint action, we can accelerate progress toward a more equal and inclusive educational system. I applaud the Ministry of Information once again for using this national platform to foster civic dialogue and amplify the urgency for gender equality. Your leadership in the information dissemination and behavior change communication is central to building a society that values inclusion, justice, and human dignity. As I declare this event open, I want us to remain vigilant and let us remember, when girls learn, economies grow. When children with disabilities are welcomed in classrooms, we build empathy, tolerance, and creativity. When education is truly inclusive, it becomes not just a tool for personal development, but a foundation for national peace and progress. As the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs, I reaffirm my ministry's commitment and unwavering support to working across government and with all partners to make this vision a lived reality. Together, let us champion a Sierra Leone where no child is invisible and no dream is out of reach. Thank you very much.
Let's put your hands together for her again. Please, please, let's put your hands together for her. Thank you very much, Dr. Aissata Mahoe, for that compelling speech. And we'll kindly want to have that speech, a copy of that speech, to include that in the research work we're doing and the conversation we're going to take even after here today. And just to let you know, the University of the Fraser Valley will also be in McKinney next week to hold similar event, to speak to community leaders, local leaders, and students across the region as well. Thank you very much once more for that statement. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're going to see a presentation very soon, but I want to draw our attention to key statistics. Out of 149 seats in Parliament, including I really want to thank Dr. Aissata Mahoe for running with that bill and ensuring that the implementation of that bill is taking grounds in different places. As early as 2025, women held at least 31.25% of cabinet role. Can I read that again? As early as 2025, women now hold position of 31.25% of cabinet roles in Sierra Leone. Roughly, possibly up to 40%, surpassing the threshold. Let's put your hands together for that. This would have never been possible if Mada Bio would have not decided to pass the Giwi Bill Act and be intentional about it. Without wasting time, we want to call on somebody who I've been working with, the ministry has been working with on this project. She's been in Canada, we have been working together. I try to put her in an acronym, like REAL. She's a researcher, she's an educationist, she's an advocate, and she is a leader. Let's put your hands together for Catherine Liao, who is a research associate and project management at University of Fraser Valley. Let's put your hands together for her as she will give us a presentation of really why we're here and what's the vision behind the gender, championing the gender inclusive and education for us. Put your hands together for her once more. Thank you very much for coming to Sierra Leone.
Hi. So good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Liao. I'm a research associate and project manager with the University of the Fraser Valley in Canada. Between 2011 and 2013, I lived and volunteered as a nurse educator in Sierra Leone. And since then, Sierra Leone has been like a second home to me. And over the years, I've supported initiatives in nursing education, research, and burns care. And I'm honored to share our project today, which is called Championing Gender Equality and Inclusive Education in Sierra Leone. And just to give you a little bit of context, in 2021, my colleague Gitanjali and I, we partnered with the Albinism Royal Foundation, which was a grassroots organization focused on disability rights in Sierra Leone. And we began this journey that would eventually lead to this project. During data collection, we noticed that some children with albinism were attending project sessions during school hours. And these observations sparked conversations in the community. And we learned from parents with children with disabilities who shared concerns about stigma, fear, and lack of inclusive supports, which kept their children away from school. I can maybe advance to the next slide. According to the Sierra Leone's 2017 Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, 23% of children aged 5 to 17 live with at least one functional difficulty. Yet many of their learning needs go unmet. Many challenges persist for this population and high exclusion rates. Sorry, I just want to go into slide 2. Yes, thank you. And many challenges persist for this population, and high exclusion rates from schools are mainly due to a lack of an enabling environment. Girls with disability face even greater barriers, including safety concerns and gendered expectations. These gaps reflect broader social inequities and intersecting forms of marginalization. So as you can see from our slide, we have big dreams, and our ultimate outcome is to, I can't see very far, I have eyesight issues, is increase realization of rights to gender responsive and inclusive education, especially for girls, young women, and with disabilities. That is our ultimate outcome. We do have intermediate outcome 1, which is strengthen capacity and create an enabling environment for gender responsive and inclusive education for girls, boys, and youth with disability. And increase agency and abilities of girls, boys, and youth with disability, especially girls and young women and their families, to challenge barriers to education, harmful gender norms, and stigma in communities. As you can see, with support from Global Affairs Canada, our project aims to work with children, adolescents, community leaders, and schools in the Bombali and Tonklili districts. Our project focuses on right-based extracurricular activities through Saturday clubs, where we will build knowledge on leadership, decision-making, advocacy, digital literacy, and knowledge about sustainable development goals. Through these Saturday clubs, we will co-create youth-led, child-friendly education charters and create a mentorship environment where older youth mentors can mentor their younger peers. We will engage with the community actively and create a space where dialogue can happen. And through these dialogues, we can challenge stigma, gender bias, and harmful sociocultural norms. And through these sessions, we hope to co-create and develop pledges to support inclusive education in Sierra Leone. And we also have a vocational arm where we will focus on skill building communities, opportunities for youth seeking alternative learning pathways, and create an inclusive teaching and learning tools which will be piloted in selected schools, co-developed with national and international experts. And most importantly, we will be committed to sharing knowledge and advocacy through briefs, forum, media. And as you can see in our slide, the implementation team is the University of Fraser Valley and the Institute of Gender and Children's Health Research. So this project is not about just inclusive education. It's about reimagining a future where no child is left behind because of disability, gender, poverty, or place of birth. investing in leadership and the learning of children with disability, especially girls, is an investment in equity, transformation, and most importantly, an inclusive Sierra Leone. We hope that through this project, elements of civic education will empower individuals to affirm their rights, amplify their voices, and build a society where every child and youth is given the opportunity to thrive and contribute. So the path to inclusion is not easy, but it is necessary. And together with communities that are present in this room, youth, CSOs, education, policy leaders, we can make the future real. And in conclusion, I'd like to acknowledge that the project is funded by Global Affairs Canada, and we are very grateful to have the support of the Honorable Minister Chernobyl and his team, and we look forward to building partnership with the ministry through our university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine Liao, for that presentation. And we want to let you know that as a ministry, we are open, and we want to work more with the University of Fraser Valley and push the amazing initiative that you do have. Without wasting time, we want to take our keynote speech. And after that, we will go into a quick panel discussion. We're really trying to make sure that we don't waste your time, as today is Friday. Some people will be going for the Juma prayers. That makes us also inclusive as a country. Can we just say, leave no one behind? Education is a right. Thank you. I am actually going to introduce our keynote speaker for today. We had the opportunity of working with her between the two Ministry of Information and Civic Education and also the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education. On the 24th of September, we held a town hall together at Frabe College. And there I witnessed her passion to discuss critical issues that is being challenged by many young people across Sierra Leone. One of the things she said in that town hall, she said, investing in youth through quality education is pivotal to building a nation's human capital. It equips our students with the skills needed for Sierra Leone's social economic growth and support national development plan. That is to tell you the ambition she's got, really working with young people across Sierra Leone, and also the kind of impact she's making in the area of education. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, can we rise on our feet, please, as we welcome our keynote speaker, another doctor, another female, another gender giant, Dr. Ramatulai Wuri. Put your hands together for her.
Thank you very much. Colleague ministers present, Deputy Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, our partners from the University of Fraser Valley, other colleagues from academia present, civil society partners, community leaders, young change makers, members of the Fourth Estate, good morning. I bring you warm greetings from the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, and I'm very happy to be with you today at a convening that speaks to the very heart of our aspirations as a government and as a nation, which is a Sierra Leone where every child, regardless of gender, regardless of geography or ability, has the opportunity to learn, to grow, to thrive, and to contribute positively to societal development. I wish to thank the Ministry of Information and Civic Education and our esteemed partners from the University of the Fraser Valley in Canada for convening this critical conversation. The presence of diverse actors in this room today, from government and civil society to communities, and most importantly, our young people, is not only symbolic, but it is also very strategic. Because the kind of transformation we seek cannot and should not rest on the shoulders of government alone. You may ask the question why policy matters. I've been asked to speak about the role of policy. Let me begin with a fundamental truth. Policy is not just paperwork. Policy is power. Policy defines who gets access, who gets left behind, and who gets to shape the future. It can either reinforce cycles of inequality or boldly disrupt them. Unfortunately, we live in a world where girls are often limited to gendered roles, so caregiving roles. We live in a world where students with disabilities often face learning environments that were never designed with them in mind. And we also live in a world where poverty continues to silence potential. Therefore, policy becomes the lever through which we must build equity into the system itself. Under the New Direction agenda and the visionary leadership of His Excellency the President, Julius Maada Bio, Sierra Leone continues to make human capital development the cornerstone of our national transformation. And we're not just speaking in generalities. We're investing in deliberate, evidence-informed reforms that center girls, young women, and marginalized learners into education policy. From the free quality school education policy at basic and senior secondary education that has removed the financial barrier for all students, but also removed the societal barriers for often vulnerable groups, to the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act that we've heard about. We are creating a governance ecosystem that aligns laws, policies, and systems with our collective values of equity, dignity, and opportunity for all. But laws alone are not enough. They must be translated into budget lines, into classroom practices, into teacher attitudes, into infrastructure designs, and learning materials. They must be translated into challenging harmful gender and societal norms. That is why I value platforms like this that creates an opportunity for us to have continued dialogue on gender equality and inclusivity to help us demystify this topic. Yesterday, the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, in partnership with the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs and the fashion and textile industry, organized an event, a fashion event, and we were all there yesterday evening. And it created a platform for models, fashion models with albinism, to be able to showcase what they can deliver as well. And at the end of it all, we had a powerful statement from one of the gentlemen telling us firsthand what they have to deal with that we do not necessarily think about. But that has stayed with me. This morning I had a conversation with my son about this, and I'm hoping that he will pass that on to his peers. So having continued dialogue will help us to demystify some of these harmful practices that we have. We should open our minds to be able to learn, to unlearn, and relearn new things. But we can only achieve that if we develop policies that are inclusive. We should move away from developing policies for people, but policies with people. Policies that reflects the perspective of all the relevant stakeholders. That would ensure that there's ownership and leadership and long-term sustainability as we implement the policies together. Before being asked to serve as the Minister of Technical and Higher Education, some of you may be aware that I served within a university in Sierra Leone as a health system strengthening researcher. And I see my colleague, Dr. Bintu Mansare, who I haven't seen for a very long time. Very happy to see you here. But I remember being involved in a study on community health workers. In the post-Ebola phase, we all know the role that community health workers played during Ebola. They were sons and daughters of the soil. So where it was impossible for the health response to send somebody from outside the community into the different communities with health messages, community health workers were accepted by their communities. And they played a very important role. And at the end of that, because their roles are clearly centered around maternal and child health, a policy was developed by the Ministry of Health then that was very gender sensitive. And it stated explicitly there should be more female community health workers. It was developed, it was on paper. And then it came to implementation. Implementing the policy, it also made provision for stipends to the female health workers. It made sense. They're dealing with maternal and child health, more women. But when it came to implementation, the data showed otherwise. We ended up with more male CHWs than female CHWs. And I was opportune to be involved in a research study that looked into that. And the reason was because of gender norms. If I'm a female and there's an opportunity for somebody to earn an income, and I have my brother or my father or my uncle, I am not putting myself forward. My father or my brother or the male head of the household will put themselves forward. So if the policy was developed at that point in time with the communities, getting their views on board, then we may have had a different narrative. So that is why inclusive policies, as I've said, should be developed with and not for people. Equally, that is where ministries like the Ministry of Information and Civic Education, the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, the Ministry of Social Welfare, the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs, and my ministry, the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, come in. We all have a role to play. At the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, we are intentional about using policies to reshape access, expand opportunity, and ensure inclusive excellence in post-secondary education. We understand that gender equality and inclusive education should not be in the sidelines of development, but they should be at the center because they are drivers of tenacity, productivity, and innovation. We're currently developing a Technical and Higher Education Act that codifies inclusion, transparency, and quality at all levels of tertiary and skills training. And we see this not just as a legal reform, but as a system redesign. We're also working on a policy, a revised policy for the granting aid scheme. We're all familiar with the granting aid scheme, SLG. So we're working to support the vision of His Excellency when it comes to gender equality and women's empowerment. We've heard about the GWE Act, which makes a lot of provisions, one of them being minimum 30%, minimum 30% female representation in leadership positions. And within the ministry, we're mindful that certain sectors, especially in the STEAM fields, science, technology, engineering, agriculture, which is our flagship program, and mathematics, these are historically dominated by men. As I always say, they're testosterone heavy. We can all agree to that. So if we are aware of that now, and we want to ensure that the GWE Act is sustained, we have to be proactive now and provide access for female students to thrive within those sectors, for empowering them to take up potential leadership positions in those sectors in the future. If we don't do anything about that, then the status quo will remain. It will continue to be male-dominated, and we will not have female students capacitated to thrive in those sectors, and we will be paying lip service to a component of the GWE Act. So that is one thing we will be rolling out. The policy is being revised that will be rolled out on a quota system for female students studying specific STEAM programs. We're also making provisions for persons with disability. Everything we do within the ministry, we do it through the GESI lens, gender equality, social justice and inclusivity. And again, we'll be making provisions for persons living with disability. But having said that, we're mindful that we also have a role to play in ensuring that they have the enabling environment to learn. So we're talking with our institutions, we're talking with partners, how can we leverage on technology to utilize assistive technology, for example, to help them to be able to create that enabling environment. So this is not just about ticking the gender box. What I've said about the GWE Act and what my colleagues before me have said about the GWE Act, it is not just about ticking the gender or inclusivity box. I always say that do not call a woman to a decision-making table because you want to tick the gender box, or a person with disability because you want to tick the inclusivity box. Call a woman who can contribute, who can add value to the conversation. Equally, it goes for men as well. It's not just about men and women and persons with disability. We should be able to create a space where people will be capacitated to add value to the conversations. But as I said, it's not just about ticking the box, it's also about changing the status quo. I talk about my son a lot. He's 9 years old. And what I do in being asked to serve in this capacity, we've heard about the percentage of women in leadership positions in cabinet, in parliament. For me, what it means, he's growing up being accustomed to seeing women in leadership positions. It's not going to be a strange phenomenon for him when he grows up, because he knows that his mother is a leader, and I'm not a fluke, because we have more women in leadership positions. So when he grows up, it will not be something that will so be out of the ordinary for him. So if I think that for my son, that's the same message that we're passing on to our young children, our future leaders, that there should be gender equality and inclusivity when it comes to decision making. We're also deepening international partnerships within the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education to open pathways for student-staff exchange, scholarships and collaborative research projects like this partnership that we're here for, with a deliberate focus on equity, particularly in STEAM fields. A core function of higher educational institutions in Sierra Leone is research. And as I said, I come from a research background, so we are encouraging our universities to engage in needs-based research through the GESI lens that responds to the lived realities of vulnerable groups, so we can develop policies informed by the context, and that could bring the gender and inclusivity dimension, thereby shaping smarter, more inclusive policies. Through our digital transformation agenda, we're working with partners like the West and Central Africa Research and Education Network, and Starlink and ELCOM, a private company in Sierra Leone, to expand connectivity to all of our higher educational institutions. But access alone is not enough. We are committed to ensuring digital platforms and contents that are inclusive, accessible, and empowering. We're also investing in lifelong learning and soft skills development, empowering women and differently abled learners, not only to earn credentials, but to lead with confidence and with agency. This is what it means when we say policy must move from intent to impact. And as a government, we are not just reforming institutions, we are reshaping futures. Today's dialogue is not just about what the government can do. It is about what all of us can do. It's all hands on deck. Communities must be part of co-creating inclusive schools. CSOs must help us keep systems accountable. The private sector must open doors to diverse talent. And young people, your voices, your ideas and demands must drive the future of education. We need a society where policy is not written for people, but with people, especially those who have been historically excluded. We know that when we educate a girl, we do not change her future, we change the trajectory of a family, of a community, and of a nation. We must include learners with disability When we include learners with disability, we gain perspectives, innovations, and strengths that benefits everyone. And when we use policy not to preserve power, but to expand possibility, we lay the foundation for a Sierra Leone that is just, inclusive, and unstoppable. In closing, let us not wait for change to happen at the next strategy document or the next election cycle. Let us lead it boldly, inclusively, and together. Let us be the generation of policymakers, of educators, and citizens that looks exclusion in the eye and say, not in our schools, not in our time. Let us write policies that unlock potential. Let us build systems that reflect the dignity of every learner. And let us shape a future where gender equality and inclusion are not aspirations, but they become our lived realities. I thank you.
Let's put our hands together again for Dr. Haja Amatulai Buri for that compelling statement, keynote address. Just not to waste your time, we're just going to highlight some few things that she said. One of them, she said, policy is not only a paper, but it's a work of power. Gender equality and inclusive education should not only be on the sideline, but should be the driving force for innovation and educational development. We are not only educating a girl, but we are changing the future and the trajectory of a community. The last thing she appealed all of us to do is that let us not wait for change to happen until the next election, but that we look exclusion in the eye and say not in our school and not in our time. Thank you very much. Those were the words of our Honorable Minister. Thank you so much. On this note, we want to look maybe a 2-minute video to just help us breathe well. And please, if you do not have water to drink, let us know. We can give you water. We have, the American man said water, isn't it? In Sierra Leone, we say water. Thank you very much. So, media team, can you please give us one of the videos on human capital development? This video is a highlight of a shot that was taken from the recent National Presidential Town Hall that was held in Kenema a few days ago. And also, we should also be expecting the panel to come very soon. It's going to be a very short panel. And after that, we'll have a performance by one of our uprising Sierra Leone artists. He's been doing a lot of songs on gender equality across Sierra Leone. Slim Peasy, very soon he will come on the stage as well. And then after that, we'll open up a dialogue for everybody to contribute, and then we will close this session. Are you ready? Okay. The team is not ready. On that note, I want to call on my colleague, Mr. Mohammed Jawad Nyale, who will lead the panel conversation. Put your hands together for Mr. Mohammed Jawad Nyale. He's one of our outreach officers at the Ministry of Information and Civic Education. Thank you very much, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here this morning to really moderate this very, very important conversation on the role of policy in advancing gender equality and inclusive education in Sierra Leone. This is a conversation that is very, very important, and it's about time we start having it. And it's really also important that civic education is highlighted as a major stepping stone in really achieving a lot of the things we are discussing here this morning. So I'm now going to introduce my panel here. So the first person on our panel is a gender advocate and a disability rights activist based in Kabbalah, and they are doing amazing work with the Progressive Disability Organization, Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for SierraLeone. Thank you very much, SierraLeone, for the amazing work you are doing out there to really advance the rights of disability groups. Our second guest will be the Executive Director for Institute of Gender and Child Health Research. She has also been in this field doing incredible work to advance the rights of to advance gender equality across the country in different sectors, especially in education. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Dr. Bintu Mansari. I'm now going to welcome a representative from the University of Fraser Valley. They are partnering with us to roll out this very important conversation and, of course, a very important project that is looking to benefit a lot of girls, especially those with disabilities. So I will now welcome Dr. Gitanjali Gill. A round of applause for her, please. And most importantly, I'm now going to welcome the Deputy Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education herself. She has been an incredible figure, a towering figure in the gender empowerment movement and the education sector, Honorable Emilia Gogra. So I will try as best as possible for make this conversation very inclusive, so a mix of Creole and English all together as we roll out this very, very important conversation this morning. But as we start this conversation this morning, one of the things I really want to mention is that we are not starting from zero. We are starting from a very, very solid footing, and now from there we continue, which is very, very important for our education sector. And I'm going to start with the Minister of Education, because over the years we don't make enormous progress. We now get more girls than they complete school than any time before in the history of we country. But whilst we make them progress, then a lot of the time it's very easy for us to just neglect or forget people with disability. So waiting at the specific work they do at the ministry for make sure they are also included part of the changes or the policies or how we education system is really even designed in the first place. The microphone, please.
Good morning, everyone. I am really honored and happy to be here to discuss gender inclusive education. When we started in 2018, not a lot of children were in school. We thank His Excellency the President for the free quality school education. In our movement in 2018, 2021, we had a dynamic minister who is now the chief minister. All of us in the ministry saw how girls were neglected, saw how there was marginalization, and especially what you specified with disability. We formed the policy of the radical inclusion. It is not only like what my sister said, a written policy. It is a policy that instills action. And the action we have in the ministry a directorate of disability, a directorate of gender, and a directorate of early childhood, because we say catch them when they are young. We start with disability from the early childhood. We start with disability in the remotest areas, and we see that with this and the Directorate of Disability is being handled by a disabled person. Of this. And with this, we also have our disabled schools, which we give subventions to. And it is timely, and we see that their needs are met. There was an incident when the Milton Magai School for the Blind got bombed. Immediately, we addressed that need. Going to school was a problem. What did we do? We had the free education project, and we had buses for them to convey them to school. And for the examination, we are not taking exams, especially for those in exam classes, because their own writing, Braille, is difficult for WAEC to convey their exams. With the help of all the staff in the ministry, including myself as the minister, we all collaborated. We had these disabled children in their various schools take their exams. And today, some of them are in universities. A lot more has been done to them. We engage NGOs, the FCDOs, for their accessory materials and also for their lodging in their various hostels that they have. Moving forward, there is something wrong that we need to address with the disability. Autism is neglected. We need, as a community, as we move along with gender inclusion, we need to pay attention to this and make corrections. The ministry alone cannot do it. Sometimes we have done the policy, we have done the activities, but there are still some communities that need help. Thank you.
Okay. And Dr. Mansari, I come now to that very important point the minister mentioned about autism, because it's one of the disability that we community they not quite understand, and we tie it to witchcraft or a lot of other negative things, and you are doing child health research. So how much more work do we need